5 when we usually start the meeting. We missed anybody important?
There might be less because of the holiday and.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share screen and welcome everyone to the July 5th card meeting. Just a reminder that all meetings are open to the public, but they are being recorded. And if there's some particular thing that you don't want recorded, then put something in the chat and we'll try to work something out or edit it out later. But this is live for anybody who's tuning in by Zoom. And then it'll be posted on YouTube within a day or two. So I'm Roger Rayle. I'm Chair of CARD and Chair of SAR Residents for Safe Water. And next month I'll be starting my 30th year as a citizen volunteer watching over the Gelman site. With that, I'm gonna turn it over to Beth for the vote for the June minutes. With all the CARD board members will be eligible to vote for the approving the minutes. So go ahead, Beth.
Yes, hi everyone. The next vote is if I have someone to make a motion to approve the June minutes.
So moved.
Thank
Support.
you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Beth. Nice
Thank
job.
you.
Appreciate it.
And now I'll turn it over to Jack Eaton for the to run the meeting, and I'll be on at the end to get my update.
Thank you. I'm Jack Eaton. I'm the Executive Director of CARD, and I'm going to try to run this meeting as best I can. We're going to start on item number 3A, which is an ongoing topic that we've had where EGLE has requested certain information from the polluter, and I'm wondering if Dan has an update on this.
No, they have not. No different update than I had last time. We have, requested information about data and information about the mainly on-site areas, and Gelman has chosen not to supply that at this time. So we were working toward. We gave them several letters at the end of last year and the beginning of this year about as allowed under Part 201 to request that, officially request that information. And so we were pursuing that potentially through the court, but then the Gelman did an appeal to the Michigan court, and under our interpretation, or I've been told the interpretation of the AG, Michigan court rule bars the court from amending its order. So we have decided at this time not to pursue into the court, using the court, that request to reverse its or lift its confidentiality agreement and provide that information. But that is just a temporary, at this time we will revisit that once the Court of Appeals action is reconciled. So it's the same that it has been. We have not, we are not currently pursuing it through court, but that is an option in the future once that Court of Appeals activity is reconciled.
And we'll have more discussion about the court hearings and the appeal under item F. So I'm going to move along to B if no one has a comment or a question on this one. Excellent. So is there anything further on the MS4?
Well, basically is kind of a quick review. What I presented last meeting also was Gelman has submitted the latest work plan as a work plan for downgrading and Allen Drain GSI investigations. That work plan was in response to the MS4 work plan. It was the second of kind of a response from Washtenaw County request and EGLE WRD request, as we were working with Gelman last fall with an MS4 work plan to investigate the MS4 violation in the Allen Drain. Gelman's interpretation of the relationship of Part 201 and Part 31 identifies that if they fulfill Part 201 obligations, then that can fulfill Part 31 obligations. Part 31 is the MS4 program under so they submitted the work plan as a GSI work plan. We have reviewed that work plan with our sister division, and in fact, we've gone through a detailed review with several meetings internally. We are meeting on this Friday, with WRD, the AG, and RRD to kind of come up with a final response. That response will identify that that Gelman may still have MS4 obligations, even though fulfilling the GSI, under Part 201, the GSI obligations. Then we will, at Gelman's request, we have committed to meeting with them. We've already alluded or identified that, hey, we're not gonna, we don't have that same opinion, and you may still have MS4 obligations. So at their request, prior to officially sending out our response for the GSI work plan, we are going to meet with them and discuss what would be required to meet the obligations of both programs. So that our internal meeting is this week. I'm anticipating then a meeting scheduled with Gelman sometime here within the next month or so. I do not want to commit tonight because, again, as it's very difficult to get everybody together. There's a lot of people now in the room, and but that's the plan from RRD. So, yes, Beth.
Well, can we get an update if you have any updates? Since I hate to wait a whole month to find out what happens on Friday.
Oh, I can. Okay, I'll make that note. Again, what we wanted to, I would prefer an update come after we kind of meet with Gelman. More of that. That would be more of a logical time to update. So that is likely going to start pushing it closer to that next CARD meeting. But that's what we're trying to do in-house here is because it's two programs, and because WRD runs the MS4 program, and as they did in our first review last fall, we identified, with Evan Pratt. Just understand too, Evan, as the Washtenaw County Water Resources Commissioner, he is the Washtenaw County holds the permit, the Allen Drain, the permit that the MS4 is in violation of. So he would be the permit holder, and he would be the one that would move on to any court action required to make Gelman to fulfill their obligations under MS4. But we're working with, and then our WRD division works with Evan. And because it's complex, the two programs, Part 201 and Part 31, we're working together. So what we want to do is make sure WRD and RRD and the AG, because it's also in the court, we have kind of our, on the same page with what the requirements are going to be. And then we were going to meet with Gelman, and then if there's not a sufficient response or discussion with Gelman that about under the MS4 program, we're going to be pursuing it. With WRD, it'll be helping Evan to see what can be done under the MS4 program, and we will still continue then to pursue it. What is required under Part 201, the GSI obligations. So I don't want to commit, Beth, to meeting to information right after the Friday call. Let me see when what I can do is identify when we're going to meet with Gelman. How about we do that next? And then that'll give us a little bit of a time frame related to if it's closer to the next month's meeting, then I can identify that and we can put it on the agenda. I think Vince, you had your hand up?
Yep. Thanks, Dan. So yeah, interesting. The last meeting, Josh showed up, came and made a comment that there's a conflict between MS4 and the contamination in this Ann Arbor with relation to the state regulations. I think it's good that it's being evaluated, it's being looked at. I think we have a situation that is very dire, in my opinion. We have poor management of this situation because we have findings out of the blue in Scioto Township showing us that the plume is moving towards and is in a lot of drinking water wells, is also very close to the Huron River. We have EGLE doing tests in the Alms Creek in West Park because we pressured that to happen. But there's no follow-ups. So we don't know where this plume is on the west side. We don't know where it is in Ann Arbor Township. We don't know where it is in Scioto Township because it's not being followed carefully. And I think it's gotten to a situation where it's kind of like a free-for-all for Gelman. Gelman is really not being required to maintain the safety and health and welfare of Ann Arbor, Scioto, and Ann Arbor Townships residents. I think it's pretty significant that we have such high numbers so far away from the site where it originally manifested. I think we need more tests in Scioto Township that are run by EGLE to get a better handle on where this plume is flowing. If you look at my background, you can see the depressions where the flow is moving towards Barton Pond. You can see the drop in elevation. And my cousin is actually a geologist, did stormwater and groundwater evaluation. He said, yeah, it tends to follow these depressions. He's, tried to deal with contaminations on the East Coast for small communities. So I think we need more tests. I think we need to get a better handle on this. I think that the fact that the West Park area has such high numbers is very concerning to me, and we don't have any follow-up tests. I mean, it's just, it could be percolating people's basements at 100 part per billion. We don't know. There's no way to know that. And I think, Kathy Knoll and Scioto Township, to their credit, decided we're just going to do some tests and we're going to try and figure out what's going on. And unfortunately, they found out some very serious issues are happening in Scioto. Thank you.
All righty, go ahead, Roger. You're mute.
Unmute.
As a host, I don't have a way to raise my hand on the screen apparently. Yeah, I want to point out that there are other interveners. Local governments are the interveners in the court case and have some jurisdiction about what's going on in their area, and yet it doesn't sound like they're being included in this meeting with Gelman. Is that right, Dan?
Well, this initial meeting with Gelman is going to be the state regulator, EGLE, but they will be included as required depending on which program path it goes down. Like I said, if it's has to stay a separate issue, MS4, it's going to be in Washtenaw County's hands to do through the court to require obligations of the MS4 program, basically the elimination of the illicit discharge.
Well, it seems like the state would want to meet with the local people, and officials before they're meeting with the outstate company.
It seems like either way, the interveners should be included. If it's if it falls under Part 201, we are intervening parties to that dispute, and the intervener should be included in that discussion. And if it's Part 31, then certainly the local governments have their interest, because it falls within the scope of authority of our county drain commissioner. So either way, it just seems like excluding the local actors from any discussion is ill-advised.
Okay, I will take that back. I mean, I will, you know, as far as, like I said, as the state regulator and getting, you know, as the regulator under the Part 201 RRD, when we get a GSI work plan, we go through our internal review of that. So that's where we are now, you know, with our sister division, to make sure, you know, we identify and both programs, Part 31 and Part 201. So I can see your point, I guess, about, but as far as local, you know, interveners aren't the regulators at this point. Now they will, you know, we are kind of in the court to see where, you know, with that, with the appeals and that could, you know, that could significantly change here in the future. But that's where we are now. That's where we're going right now, is to we want to get a response back to them as we would any GSI work plan to Gelman as a liable party, you know, since they submitted a work plan, a GSI work plan for review.
So I appreciate you taking that point of view back.
I'll take that back.
Because the Court of Appeals, when granting the appeal, declined to stay the status of the interveners, and so we should still be at the table. I see no further hands, so I'm going to move on to C. Patti, do you have an update on wet basement testing?
I reported out last month that we had tested a basement and it was non-detect. And since then, in conversations with the city, they're choosing to end the program. It's at like a 2-year mark at this point, and we're at the end of the fiscal year as of 6/30. So that program is going to end.
Okay. Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that, you know, we have this program that I unfortunately didn't think was a very good one. It's too far to the west. I hope we have another program that gets instituted that's more effective and actually involves the CARD group, board member of CARD, board member of the Alums Creek Watershed Group, founding member of both. We should really be more involved in these decisions than we have been in the past. And I think it shows, unfortunately, the city and the county to some extent is not taking citizen involvement seriously. Thank you.
So I think we have to be mindful that Patti is under contract with the city, and if the city decides to end a program, it's not her fault. And so we should be bringing this to the attention of our council members, not to Patti, who's, I think, done good work on our behalf. Anything else on C? Moving on to D. Patti, do you have anything to say about Sentinel wells?
I don't really have an update, except bids came in June. They're being evaluated. I anticipate, I actually didn't check on the agenda, but it should be before council soon for a proposed bidder to get the contract. So my plan was to go by August to drill those wells. So hopefully we're still on track. My apologies for not having a better update on that.
Any questions on this matter? Moving right along. So the Superfund site designation. I think I saw someone from the EPA here. Oh, Cindy, do you have anything to report?
I think that's Cindy with EGLE, Jack.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane.
I think that's Diane O'Connell.
Okay, so we don't have we don't have a EPA representative. How about Joel?
Joel.
Yeah. So we met with EPA for a briefing on where they're at about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks from today, or today. Unfortunately, it was about a day before SIO released their testing results. We were pretty frustrated with that because we didn't get to bring up that point of concern. But I think it was a good meeting. EPA updated us on where they were at. So we know that they have a new contractor for their testing, as we know. So that's delayed them a bit. They're finalizing a work plan and for testing. They're going to be testing on and off the Gelman property. Gelman has agreed to cooperate once they have finalized a work plan and approved a work plan, or so they say at least. And so they gave us a timeline of like hopefully end of summer for that work plan to be approved. And then they're hoping, they also give us a timeline. They're hoping about 2 years for like a final NPL listing, which I think Mrs. Dingell in that briefing pushed them on. She definitely, I think, relayed the anxiety that the community is facing and that all of you are pushing. And I think she was very good about like making sure that they're in the loop that like we need to cut red tape where we can. And I'll say that EPA was also good about right in that meeting, they were starting to brainstorm about like where they can cut red tape, where we can start to speed up this process. Are there actions we can take to speed up this process? Their hands are tied to some degree because they have procedures they have to follow, but they were working to do what they can. Mrs. Dingell also like made sure that they were in the loop on Gelman's history of sort of slow walking things. And while they might say they're going to comply, there might be some issues there so that they can be prepared for if that's the case. So I thought it was a productive briefing. They gave us those timelines. So that was my big point that I wanted to get across to you guys, that they're looking at 2 years for an NPL listing, and they're hoping to start testing by end of summer.
So I hope that you'll convey our appreciation to the Congresswoman. We appreciate that she really is an advocate for us, and we understand that it's a time-consuming process. Go ahead, Vince.
So I'd just like to remind the group that in northern Michigan, Mansalota, Michigan, there is a Superfund site at that location. And according to EPA's own write-ups that they have online, the discovery of 1,4-dioxane in that contamination, which had many other contaminants involved, but when they were doing testing, they found 1,4-dioxane. That triggered them to speed up a EPA Superfund designation for that site. So I think EPA does take 1,4-dioxane very seriously. And drinking water hazards we have clearly in Ann Arbor. I like to remind people EPA had discussed 0.35 part per billion as a potentially dangerous level over lifetime exposure. Environmental Working Group has shown in write-ups of theirs that 0.3 part per billion is also a very concerning number for them. And they feel it lifetime exposure at 0.3 part per billion is very hazardous and likely or could be cancer causing. So this has been a major problem for a lot of communities. 1,4-dioxane is very hard to get rid of, very toxic. And I just hope that that information is conveyed to Congresswoman Dingell. I appreciate Joel for coming here and discussing it with us. But I think, we need to make sure that we don't have homeowners exposed either through drinking water wells or basement exposure. Thanks.
So Vince, do you know how long it took for that other site in northern Michigan to be listed?
It was as soon as Michigan, the state of Michigan changed its standard for 1,4-dioxane, which was probably what, 2016 or something, or maybe it was earlier than that. That was the trigger that but encouraged EPA to actually step on the effort. And
yeah, so they started the process, but do you know how long it took before they were actually listed?
I could look it up, but I don't remember offhand. I did read up on it recently, but I don't remember that.
Okay.
I can check it. Thanks.
I'm going to call on Dan and then Roger. Go ahead, Dan.
I just want to point out too that I have been assisting the EPA in their preparation to collect samples this summer. So I've been giving them contact information on property owners, anything that I have that could assist them in speeding up trying to get their initial samples completed. So I did want to point out that EGLE is cooperating whenever asked of trying to get a decision because we understand the stakeholders' concern, and if that is the path that is chosen, EGLE will assist the Gelman. If it's a Superfund site, we'll assist the EPA if it becomes a Superfund site. So just wanted to let you know that I've been working with them within the last couple of months. So.
Thank you so much. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. By the way, that site is commonly known as the Tar Lake site, Mansalona, with the Wix's name is in there too. And it probably started a long time ago, but dioxin was a more recent discovery. I mean, because I think they had TCA, and of course dioxin's a co-contaminant. But Joel, you said that you didn't have the data from SIO's homeowner sampling when you met with the EPA. Do you think that would have made a difference in the meeting if they would have seen that there's dioxin more than a mile away from where they thought everybody thought the edge of the plume was?
I mean, at the time, we obviously knew it was spreading, and she mentioned that. I can't say.
And so I would follow up with Dan. Dan, since you've been having meetings with the EPA about where to sample, have you shared
yes
most recent sample?
Some of that assistance was giving them what I was sent as Scioto Township in within the last month of what was sent out by Scioto. There are questions about about the sampling last year. That information I shared with the EPA. So yes, I mean they were aware and are aware that
I'll have in my update, I'll have some information
right
about that, more detailed, that I hope you will share with the EPA before they
do
their
that
final determination of where to do the sampling. Thank you.
Anything else on this item? I'm going to move on to the intervener update. This isn't attributed to anyone, so I'm going to try to volunteer Kathy Knoll to tell us what's going on. There's a lot of things going on right now, so if you can just start off the conversation.
Okay, well, I shared today a brief that was filed with the Court of Appeals. Basically, the interveners are attempting to ask the court to direct Judge Connors to rule on the motion that was brought several weeks ago. As you recall, Judge Connors declined to rule on it because of the pending appeal. So that was filed today. There are no oral arguments apparently on this type of motion in front of the Court of Appeals. So we'll wait to hear a decision. The Court of Appeals oral arguments for The pending appeal is this Thursday at 11 a.m. in Lansing, in person. Apparently, this will be posted on YouTube 24 to 48 hours after the oral arguments. And basically, in this appeal, Gelman is attacking the trial court procedures that were followed when Judge Connors entered the response activity order a year ago. And this response activity order was attempting to implement the cleanup plans from the draft fourth amended CJ or court or CJ, however you want to refer to it. But so we're on hold with all of this. And I'm advised by our legal counsel, we're expecting a decision within 1 to 2 months after the oral arguments. Jack, maybe you could offer a little more information if you want to.
So first of all, I've put a link in the chat window that will take you to the intervener's motion to the Court of Appeals to direct the trial court to reconsider its recent decision not to take any action on the fourth consent judgment pending the appeal. I've read it, it's pretty good. I have a question. Do you know where in Lansing the hearing is?
I do not.
Okay. I assume it's just at the Court of Appeals up there, and I haven't practiced up there in a long time. I don't recall where that is. So, but it's 11 a.m. on the 7th, right?
Yes.
So, I'm not sure what I would add other than I'm optimistic that the court is going to be troubled by the polluter's desire to overturn a remedial order that it negotiated. But I'm often surprised by what courts do, so I don't have anything more to add on that. So does anybody else have comments on the state of our intervention?
Jack, I know Kathy Griswold has city council meeting in 20 minutes. Does she want to, even if it's not talking on this, does she want to talk on anything before then?
I didn't notice her. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, she just said thank you to you for that link. But I just wondered too, I know she's got city council, if there's anything she wanted to say. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Beth. Yes, I'm sitting in chambers right now, and I do plan to go to Lansing on Thursday. So if only to show that we remain very, very interested in what's happening in the courts. So I don't think I have anything else to say, but yeah, let's fast track this EPA NPL designation. 2 years is too long. So thanks.
Alrighty. So anytime anyone says that the EPA takes a very, very long time, I just want to remind them that every time that Gelman can file an appeal, they will file an appeal. Mm-hmm. This drags on. So a year ago, the court ordered them to immediately take action, and we're now quibbling over whether immediate means something more than it seems to. We've been at this for 30 years, so I don't know that the EPA is relatively slower than EGLE has been. Anything else on the intervener update? Seeing no hands. Kathy, did you have anything to say about homeowner well testing?
I can update just briefly. I'm sure everyone knows that SIO detected low levels of dioxane in 9 additional residential wells with our most recent round of sampling. The ranges were from 0.15 to 0.89 parts per billion. And all of these detections were north of the northernmost detection from our second round of sampling. All of these detections are approximately 1 mile north of what was thought to be the delineated boundary of the plume. So our next steps have been, we have had a meeting with the Washtenaw County Environmental Health and our expert Keith Gadway to discuss the next round of testing, the target area, what our plans are. We haven't finalized anything yet. Residents are continuing to submit requests for the 522 method well testing. We have probably close to 150 additional requests at this time. Not all of them are in the target area. And we are considering expanding beyond what we had described as our target area for some testing, but this will be as advised by Keith Gadway. Larry Lemke has also reviewed all of the data. Considering 2 additional rounds of testing, and as soon as I know more, I will update the group. In terms of the timing and our release of this information, GCSI coordinated the press release and notification of all other elected officials and elected bodies. So I'm sorry if it didn't get to, if the timing wasn't optimal for Debbie Dingell's office. I hope that you can integrate this new information going forward. And thank you.
If I could just say, there was no frustration with us on your end. We were just sad that we could not, convey that, that the timing didn't work out. I didn't mean to sound as though we were frustrated with your release at all.
Right, go ahead, Vince.
Anthony, I wonder if you could just give a quick review of why you're doing, Scioto Township's doing the test, why they're different, why they're more sensitive, and why did that start happening without EGLE supporting more testing in the lower amount that you're getting?
Well, we're using the 522 method, which has a lower detection limit. We were advised by Dan Bicknell, by Keith Gadway, that there would be some key areas that should probably be tested. And that's why we did it the way we did it. It was based on expert recommendations.
Was there homeowner concern that also encouraged you to do these tests?
There was some homeowner concern, and now there's much more homeowner concern, given the results that we found.
Thanks for doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm seeing no hands up. I'm going to move on to H. In the past, we've discussed the Knights of Columbus property and the possibility that having a unified wastewater deposit into the aquifer, or drawing water out of a unified drinking well, would impact the flow of the plume. Larry Lemke has issued a memo to the SIO Planning Commission on this subject of whether having that development there should cause concern. I have just posted in the chat window a link to the memo that he wrote to the Planning Commission, and I recommend that reading. validates a lot of the concerns that we had about the Lockwood project on Jackson Avenue a few years ago. And so I hope that you'll take the time to read that. Any other comments on the Knights of Columbus property, or if need be, we can come back if you need time to read that memo and formulate questions. Go ahead, James. You're mute.
Hopefully you can all hear me. So now that this report has been released and there's been some discussion related to this, is this, are you going back to Planning Commission, or what is the status of the petition at this time?
This application hasn't left the Planning Commission yet.
Okay.
Still in front of the Planning Commission.
And so it remains tabled and to a date uncertain at this time.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good to know. It's a great, interesting report. I agree with you, Jack. I think it's very much parallel to the Lockwood 1 development.
Grady. If there's nothing else on that, let's go to the water alternative sources item. Does anybody have anything to say about this? I think we've kind of exhausted this subject. I would note that the City Council approved spending a lot of money to put solar panels on some of the water treatment plants. So I'm not sure if it's our drinking water or if it's our sewer treatment, but they're spending on those items, and so that just makes it less likely that they're going to find another source. Anything else? Oh, go ahead, Vince.
I'd just like to remind people that both Dan Bicknell and Rita LaCaruso both spoke to City Council about how bad the Great Lakes Water Authority intake location was for the City of Ann Arbor to use that water. Plus, I guess additionally too, they're very expensive to tap into that system. So it was a bad idea from day one. And seems like at this point, the City Council and the mayor have decided to set it aside and move on and try and upgrade what we have. One issue is that we may not have the capacity that some people are interested in big, tall, high-rise buildings. We may not be able to satisfy that. So thank you.
Ready. Go ahead, Roger.
Yeah, I'll just point out that I think since our last meeting, the EPA tightened the recommendation levels for 4 types of PFAS. And they're below, some of those are below the level of detect with current instrumentation. So this is the trend that's happening with these forever chemicals like dioxin and PFAS. And I think it's time for everybody to start thinking about protecting the water of the Great Lakes, where half of Michigan gets its water, including pretty much all of Southeast Michigan. So, you know, yeah, we got a lot of water there, but if we don't have the right attitudes to protect the water, even Lake Huron could be at risk from these forever chemicals sometime in the future. That's all I wanted to say on that.
So the city released its Water Matters newsletter today, and they discuss treatment for PFAS in kind of a summary sort of way, but they're confident that they can filter out the things that we're finding. Okay, I'm going to move on now.
Oh, wait. They say that, but they don't have the means of sampling down to those new levels yet. And they didn't put that in the newsletter, just so you know.
Oh, no, he does mention that. He mentions that we don't have the capacity to test down to the new levels that have been set by the EPA. But to the extent that anybody can detect this stuff, we're trying to treat for it. So I think that's somewhat reassuring. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dan for his update.
Yes, under the EGLE updates, I have a couple of figures like I did last time. Roger, can I?
Oh yeah, I gotta let you, hold on a second. Participants. Dan, my co-host. All right,
Let me know when I can.
Stop my share. Hold on.
Sure.
Stop share. Okay, you should be able to share now.
Okay, I'm gonna. Okay, I have to pick which one I'm doing here, right? Yeah. So you're gonna see shortly a same map that I did last month. I don't have any. This is a map of what is in the response activity order, the requirements for monitoring well locations and kind of the general area where things will be done. They are still, as I reported last month, the areas that have the dots or the circles that have monitoring well numbers, those are wells that have been installed, anywhere from 1 to 3 wells at each one of those locations. Gelman is still pursuing private access. They have moved forward a little bit. EGLE has been assisting them. I've taken a call from property owners of just kind of explaining why and what we want done, and basically the court actions. Why are these locations wanted? Then the other locations that are not done, that are these locations here and the locations here, which Gelman is still finalizing the access agreements with the City of Ann Arbor, as I understand it. Again, I'm getting this secondhand. So there's a master license agreement that they're still working out. So that as soon as those locations are done, that master agreement, then they plan on starting installation of monitoring wells. The wells will be sampled to bedrock in these locations, and anywhere from 1 to 3 separate monitoring wells levels, depths will be installed at each one of these locations. They do have the access to this location here. They have not started installation with the idea that once they get a rig out here in this area, they don't want to be jumping back and forth. So they want to just start and move from one to the other. So they do have access here. They get, finalizing access here, and then also finalizing access here. Those are the monitoring wells that are required. The extraction wells that are listed in the response activity order is in the Rosewell remediation area right here. They need some access, right-of-way access, to get the infrastructure, the piping that they're going to need, the vault and everything that they're going to need to install to install the monitoring well. They are likely to. There's an existing injection well that's here. IS2 is, I believe, the old number of it. I believe they're going to use that as the extraction well, but they're going to take a final look at it. They've done borings along here to see what depths, what would be the best water bearing zones to do the extraction. They would want the extraction done in high concentration areas. Their work, this also needs some final access from the city. And then the other area that is identified in the response activity order is this Park Lake well remediation area. This is the area that it is proposed to do an extraction well and treat the groundwater with a portable unit using the same treatment that is back at their plant here, the chemical treatment, ozone and hydrogen peroxide, and then discharge it into First Sister Lake under an NPDES permit. I'll jump ahead a little bit. That NPDES permit has been submitted by Gelman within the last month. Wasn't able to track down the date, Roger, that we talked about today, But within the last month, that NPDES permit has been submitted to the EGLE WRD division under, you know, how they have to do it using my Waters, Michigan Waters database. And I've checked in with the permit writers that are doing the other NPDES permit. I've been working with them about the renewal, and he has acknowledged they have received it and they've assigned it to his group to start that evaluation of that new request for discharge into First Sister Lake. Again, that process, just in general, is that they will go through that and then issue a draft permit, and then basically they've committed for this particular area. They've committed, I think, to you at a CARD meeting that public comment. They will start a public comment, and they've committed also because of the interest in and your concern about discharging to First Sister Lake, that they would also have a public meeting too. So I do not have, I'm just identifying that we've been waiting for that permit to be submitted. It has been submitted and is now in to EGLE for review. As far as the discharge, the NPDES renewal for discharge into the unnamed tributary of Honey Creek of their current treatment system over here, that is, again, I checked on that as I do each month for the CARD meetings, and they are still working. They are much, much closer. And I think I reported end of June, early July, they have, you know, they have changed it, you know, to identify July is still a possibility. So we're waiting for a draft permit to be issued, renewal permit for that NPDES discharge. What'll happen for that one is it will be submitted or will be transmitted to Gelman. Gelman will have a chance to review that, and then there will be a public comment period where it will be open. That permit will be identified and presented to the public for review comment on that. Again, that it's a different program. It's not my program. And as far as I don't have specific dates once it's issued to Gelman, you know, how long before the public comment period. I will keep you updated when I know, because I know in both NPDES permit issues, you know, of the concern of the stakeholders. So let me move on to, this is also some, what I showed last month. I want to review that again. They've done 2 of the 3 extraction wells that are required under the response activity program is TW24 and TW25. 24 was installed last summer. 25 was installed last spring, and 25 was installed last summer. Both of them are online and extracting groundwater and sending it back through their current treatment system. The data from these wells, they sample them monthly, and it is presented in their monthly reports to us, and then I include it in our EGLE database. So you can look up concentrations in those areas. They are high. That's why the wells were put there in the 2,000 to 4,000 parts per billion range right now, as I remember the first couple samplings. There is another proposed well, a 3rd one required. They did some preliminary work down here and really did not find a good zone, vertical zone to extract groundwater down here. So they will be doing some more work, GSI work. They will be getting some more data and propose the 3rd location after they get that data. There is a potential of 2 additional extraction, or 2 additional phase 2 extraction well, 3 additional phase 2 extraction wells. And these locations are shown in purple here, are just what was just a very preliminary potential locations, just from historic information review. So they are doing additional extraction at high concentration areas on site as required under the response activity plan. Let me the other component of on-site activities is there's a a heated soil vapor extraction system that is going to be put into this former burn pit area. This is the water tower. So if you know where the water, you see the water tower out there at the Gelman property. This is the water tower, this is a big water tank. So they're going to be putting in a soil vapor extraction system, but also inject heated air to basically volatilize this 1,4-dioxane in the soil. So that work here, utility clearance work here, has started. I wanted to show you some photos that within the last month and a half, in June or so, in May and June, they started these activities. This is the asphalt being removed from that area. This is, like I said, they have to move utilities. There is a large diameter water utilities through here because of that water tower. There's gas lines through here. And again, it's a heated soil vapor extraction. So you have gas lines and you have heated air. So they're going to be moving utilities, but they've started those activities to do that. Some trenching just to identify where some of the utilities are. Then here's the, like I said, the water tower and that large tank. And again, you can see that they are working around that to get in preparation to get that area prepared to install soil vapor extraction wells and injection wells for that required heated soil vapor extraction remediation technology that will be installed in this area. After, let me go back here. After that is done, then this area will be resurfaced with a impermeable, probably impermeable membrane or an impermeable, so infiltration does not occur. And including that, then will also, this area will be included when that is done. So they'll have a cap basically put on this area. So precipitation can't infiltrate, and if there's any residual soil contamination, take it down to where it can impact the shallow groundwater. One of the other areas, I saw this area I wanted to go ahead. This is from the, a couple of years ago, 2017, 2018. This is from the EPA preliminary assessment. It basically identifies where we're doing some of the work. These are the former pond area. That's the source area 1 and 2. This is the water tower area. There's the former burn pit area. That's why they are doing that heated vapor extraction in this area. There is a former drum storage area right here. And then what's in hatched is the former spray irrigation disposal areas. So I just thought to point this out. This is the current pond 3. Pond 3 was underneath there, but it was covered over by the current ponds, the red and green ponds that are part of the current groundwater treatment system. So let's see here. And then one of the final things I wanted to give an update on is, as I mentioned last time, they in the pond areas right here, there is under the response activity order, they are required to install a phytoremediation, basically utilizing trees to dewater, to drop the water table. So contaminated soil, does not vertically migrate into the groundwater and then is a continuing source. So they started that. We went out and visited. This is a figure from the permit they submitted to Scioto Township of where they're going to be in planting trees. Each of these borings is a large diameter 48-inch boring that'll have a tree planted in it. I have an air photo here of some of that activities as they're completing. So they have done all the tree planting. They are going to be doing some final grading. Then we will receive from them what I'm going to call an as-built report. So for any of these areas, there's going to be as-built reports, meaning they'll give us how the final information, data and information of how the system went in. There was a design, you know, they designed something to fight a remediation, but we'll have the as-builts that'll show exactly where the borings are and all the information related to the FIDO. So they are working on that. As far as this burn pit area SVE, I believe they, you know, I was told that they are hoping to start installation of the borings as part of this system here before the end of the summer. And so that is some of the on-site activities that are going on. And then also, as soon as the access is finalized for what's remaining under further required monitoring wells, they will install that. I have asked them and they have agreed to let me know about this. So I will be out there confirming that these activities are ongoing. Like I said, we already were out there in June, early June for the FIDO remediation and confirmed that. We visited the new extraction wells and confirmed those and took photos and everything. So that's ongoing activities. One of the other activities that was just recently completed was what I'm going to call, let me see here, you guys, they cleaned the red and green ponds. They basically cleaned the ponds out. Every year they go in and drain these ponds and clean any of the sediments and properly dispose of the sediments from these ponds. These are lined ponds. They're lined with a impervious membrane. And so they go in and clean, you know, treat the water through their system, but then dewater it and then basically scrub out the ponds. So that occurred in June. Let's see, is there anything else I wanted to identify? Does anybody have any questions? Beth, go ahead while I'm looking through my notes here.
Vince was first, and then I'll.
Oh, I'm sorry, Vince. I never see your hand because it's kind of up in the corner. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll let Beth go ahead first. I think I know what she's going to say.
No, I was going to thank you for those pictures. Those are great, and I appreciate being able to see, since we can't access those areas, see.
I understand, and I did it last time, and it was well received, and I will make sure that I keep that up whenever possible. I like to document because it's me talking, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, but it is so much easier when you can document it with a picture. And I ask Gelman for photograph. I want documentation, and I tell them I'm going to show the CAR group and that, hey, you are doing activities, so let's confirm and let's document that you are. And then this is one way I can.
And then one more thing, could you just before each meeting check with Water Resources? I think you do anyway.
Yeah, I do monthly. Yep.
Thank you. About the permit.
I always send them an email and say, okay, I have a CARD meeting. Can you, I've invited them to meetings as you asked me to do. Right. Do you have any updates? And as we've known over the last, for the renewal, we really don't have any updates, but within the last couple of months, they've been getting closer. Hey, we're close. And then I did want to confirm, because you have been asking about that First Sister Lake submittal. And so I did confirm and work through that with them, and that's in the queue. And I will now have 2 permits to review and see if there's any updates.
And maybe I could send them my passionate speech about trying to expedite this, so that we know one way or another the residents that have been harmed by the polluter all these years. Thank you.
You're welcome. Vince.
So I guess I have a question about why is Gelman not putting a pipe to their treatment? As you showed on the map, it's fairly close by. I know the pipe. Wait a minute. Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
I know the pipe is going to be more expensive than just dumping it in a pristine lake that's nearby, that the community really cherishes and wants to preserve. It's one of the few lakes in the city of Ann Arbor. It's a very nice lake, and people use it all the time for swimming and boating. So I don't understand why we can't work something with them where they would pipe it as they have in other locations and not try and save a buck by dumping it in a pristine lake in Ann Arbor. I think there's going to be a lot of pushback on that, and I think it's justified. The other question I had was when they start doing vapor heating or soil heating to vapor, is there going to be a careful analysis to determine that that is not leaving the site and potentially contaminating other buildings in the area?
Yes, there'll be.
There has been cases of that happening where vapors do escape through various means, like a gravel bed that people didn't realize was there or whatever, and it can migrate off-site into other buildings, and we don't want that to happen, obviously. So
yes, as part of the monitoring plan that will be required for their heated soil vapor extraction, there will be monitoring of to make sure they don't lose the vapor. They have vapor control of any of the vapors that are developed. There will also, again, so you move dioxane into the vapor form, they'll be extracting that. They will have to go through an air permitting process in the sense of, are they going to have to treat that air coming out? Is it at a concentrations that's going to be requiring air permit? So that will also be evaluated. So, I don't have the answers right now for that. Again, because how it's written up in the CJ, it wasn't a requirement to have a design report submitted prior to implementation of these response activities, the remediation activities. Again, they self-implemented, and that's what was negotiated. That's what was agreed to by all parties in the end. So I don't have a design report to tell you, okay, this is what exactly they're going to do, this. But I will have an as-built. So
Dan, if I can interrupt here. Vince's first question is, why not, pipe it over to the treatment plant rather than dump it in the lake? And I have to remind Vince that if it's not in the remedial order from last June, EGLE has no authority to make additional requests. So we oppose the dumping of the water into the lake at that time. That's one of the reasons why the consent judgment was rejected by the interveners. It still ended up in the final order. That's where we are now. We can't modify that order. And similarly, anything that's not in the order, including this, the vapor stuff you're talking about, it is impossible to enforce because it wasn't included in the order. So that's the difficulty we're having.
I can tell you, as far as
Jack.
that vapor requirements, we will be looking at that as EGLE, because we will be, as any site that has a soil vapor extraction, heated soil vapor extraction, we will make sure no one, that we are satisfied no one's being exposed because of the remediation activities on the site, in other buildings and nearby properties. So we're going to require that. And, it's not in the response activity order. So I don't have, okay, this is a plan where where they're going to monitor, where they're going to do this. But once I get an as-built, we're going to have a lot of, I will tell you, we will review that and have a lot of questions if we have concerns that, hey, you don't have good vapor control with this system. So stuff like that.
So let's move on. Go ahead, Rob.
I've got a couple of questions. Number one is you were talking, the last part of your report, you were talking about the former pond areas that they were going to have monitoring wells and planting trees was part of the treatment plan for that area. Is that true, Dan?
Yes. It's called phytoremediation. Yes.
Okay. And then those former ponds, I'm assuming that those were some of the most polluted areas with the highest concentrations of dioxane in the soil in those areas?
Yes. They were historically because that's where they disposed of. They basically took the wastewater and put them in the ponds and let it, back then, that's what you did, dewater, into the ground.
That does not seem like that planting trees as a as a method of soaking up the water that's in the surface area so that when it rains, the water doesn't go through the soil, go through the dioxane, and then get carried down into the groundwater. That doesn't seem like a very effective remediation plan.
Well, it is an accepted and known remediation technology. I don't disagree with you as you know, for lack of a better term, aggressive, how aggressive is to remediating. That is why that we also have new extraction wells in and around those areas to extract high concentration groundwater. Again, there are on the property, Gelman has restricted all use of the groundwater, all use of the property because they own it. What we also want to make sure of is that there's not a continuing source for any movement out, away, and having other people, you know, wells and that type of thing. So this is what was negotiated and agreed to under the you know, under the several years of negotiation between all parties, EGLE, Gelman, and the interveners.
Okay. And then that, I suppose, answers my last question is, if they're doing the vapor remediation in the burn pit area because it's in the soil, why aren't they doing it in the pond area where it's got the same dioxane is in the same soil? And why didn't they expand that vapor remediation area?
Because in the burn pit area, it's more shallow. So that technology, that heated vapor intrusion, is more practical for shallower soil contamination. In these other areas, there are deep, the soil, the contamination is much deeper. And so this is, you know, this, like I said, is a technology that is accepted for some deep contamination. And again, it's what was proposed, discussed, and agreed to. So that's about
Thanks for your time.
The best answer I can give you.
So
thank you.
So Dan, Rob mentioned the planting of the trees, and last month you went through an elaborate explanation of the method of planting those trees. Do we know if any trees have actually been planted?
Yeah, that aerial photo that I showed you, if Roger wants me to give me, am I still sharing my screen?
You've got a map up there.
Oh, okay. So, I'm sorry. This is okay. Do you see an aerial photo?
Okay.
You see mounds? Okay, those are the pipes that the trees are planted down through. Basically, this is where they were dug, they were drilled, and then there's a pipe that's put into the ground that then the tree is put into that. So it requires or trains. That's what I'm trying to do. It trains the roots to go out at certain depths wherever these pipes are, and that's what they have done. So they are, as I understand it, they are done planting the trees in the pond areas. Now there will also be trees planted up in here in the marshy area, and that is they're getting, you know, they have just received the permit in May for the working in wetland areas, and so they will be doing some of this more when it's in the winter, when it's they can get in there with platforms, and there'll be some tree planting in this area too for that same reason. But here's the area where they have the two areas, the pond areas where they've completed. Like I said, they told me they had some final grading to do, and then, you know, but the majority, the biggest portion of the phytoremediation systems, the tree planting is completed in the former pond area.
What species of tree are they using?
I knew you were going to ask me that. It's a hybrid.
Is it a poplar?
Yes, hybrid poplar. That's right. I'm sorry. And I'm a soil scientist too. So, you know, it's like, oh, boy, I embarrass myself. You know, I did 4 years in College of Agriculture, and look what I did, stick foot in mouth. Yeah. It's a hybrid poplar. And they also have another version, another tree. I don't recall. I don't think they planted any, but they could go in between and do some things. And so they decided to use this hybrid poplar initially.
So another follow-up question. The concern we have about water washing through this area because you're drilling down to the ground with the trees. One of the photographs showed them removing pavement from what used to be a parking lot, I guess. Is there a concern there that now that that soil is uncapped, that water will wash through that and cause a change in the plume?
Well, there always is a concern when you have a capped area of shallow soil contamination. But what is, I believe, this is going to be done relatively quickly, related to infiltration, precipitation, within months as opposed to years. And so they'll have the system up and running in months. And so they were going to have to do that anyways. They're going to have to get these utilities out of here. So yep. They have done the utility clearance, done the pavement removal. They will install the wells and get the system up and running. And in a what for remediation time frame is relatively short period of time.
Okay, thank you so much. Did you want to move on to the next item then?
I say we get Dan a new camera. We'll take up a collection.
Why? I'm using the camera on the
terrible
computer. Well, I'm in the back room in my lazy boy, so I guess okay.
I think he's speaking to the quality of the black and white photos. He's expecting.
Oh, this was, I will tell, I'm sorry. I'm stupid. I didn't, this was, Gelman provided these to me. Now I have some of these, not these, but I have in this area some color photos. I just grabbed what they had given me because it had more of the equipment, had more of the trench. What I have is standing out behind this, the fence here and looking just kind of like this. But it's in color and, with my iPhone camera.
So once again, we're not going to blame you for what the polluter does.
Make them use a better camera. That's what I say.
So let's move along now. Okay. Did you have anything to report on homeowner well sampling?
Yeah, Jenny Kahn couldn't make it tonight. I got her report confirmed. Again, we're talking about.
Dan,
yes.
If you're done with your images, why don't you stop sharing your screen?
Okay, so how do I new share?
You just stop share.
Okay, where is that at?
It'd probably be over on your.
Stop share, there it is. Is it stopped?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I'm going to share the agenda. Get the right screen here. This should be.
And that item on the agenda that you're talking about is the basically homeowner well sampling. As I've said in the past, we with Washtenaw County Health Department, EGLE collects homeowner wells in areas around the Gelman site. Basically Washtenaw County Health Department staff do the sampling. They ship them off to the EGLE water lab, and they are analyzed for 1,4-dioxane. The 2022 has been 90% of it has been completed. All the wells have been samples. There was approximately 180 wells proposed to be sampling this year. They collected some in April, and then in June here they collected 153 of possible 165 samples. Some of the homeowners weren't home, or they didn't turn on the spigots, so they got like I said, 85–90% of the wells. So this year so far, they've collected 174 residential well sampling. There is one more collection event the week of the August 25th, and they will collect wells, residential wells, which they've along Elizabeth mainly, but the residential wells that are identified to be collected twice a year. And so they will do that in April. So, I mean, in August, or the week of August 25th. So they have sent out the the homeowner letters. It comes from the Washtenaw County, the result letters. And so those homeowners will be getting these letters this week. And so what I will start doing is after this week, I will start making those available on the database, the results, and posting that information on our webpage. We are also then meeting with Jenny and Con on this Friday, and we'll be starting to discuss the sampling program for 2023. So that we do that every year, a couple of meetings where we come up with the group and the where we're going to be sampling and how many wells, what wells. That is the time then Jenny gets a chance to request, hey, let's talk about this particular area if we want to add some wells, and we go through a kind of that with her and come up with a final number, and then turn it into our long-term monitoring, EGLE long-term monitoring program, and then they are hired to do that. And that work will, that'll be completed by the end of this year, calendar year. And then they'll start the 2023 sampling as they do in approximately April 2023.
All right, Beth has a question.
Yep, I saw that.
Hey, Dan, so the 153 that were just tested in June, you don't have those results yet?
No, I do. No, I do. Well, I haven't really looked specifics because I just got the letters from Jenny, and she had just sent those out. So I didn't, I don't want to comment on results until we get, till the homeowners, property owners, well owners have been notified by the health department.
Okay. And when you say you're meeting to talk out your next year's strategies, I'm assuming that for the SIO, you'll work with what they're doing right now too and stuff, right?
We'll take SIO information and look at it. I do want to point out that we, as I think I said a couple meetings back, that we have also lowered our detection level in the residential wells sampling that we do, that Washtenaw County does for us. So we, even though we use the same method as they modified the method, the instruments, however a chemist does it in the lab. And our detection limit is now 0.5 parts per billion. It was 1 part per billion. The current method 522 that Scioto Township is using, that method, I believe their detection level was 0.13 parts per billion. So they go down to 0.13. We are at 0.5. And I do want to, identify that, again, the criteria in Michigan, water well for dioxane is 7.2 part per billion. So, down at below 1 part per billion, we're still well below the drinking water criteria. And I want to identify that the actionable criteria that, Michigan law, requires action, cleanup, basically. So, I do want to point that out again, is that one of the reasons we did not, if you want to say, just jump into method 522, the criteria is 7.2. We were meeting the requirements and evaluating risk at 1 ppb, 0.1 part per billion. So we are.
As a homeowner, I don't.
I understand. I'm only telling you what I can do.
Right.
And,
my grandson lives over there. I want them to know if it's 0.0 something.
I understand.
Thank you.
So I want to mention that I think that the significance of the low-level positives that we're seeing is that we're seeing the direction the plume is headed. It takes us decades to get anything done. And if we anticipate that these low-level positive tests mean that that's the direction the plume's headed, so that we can start advocating for additional action in that area, we'll be ready by the time it gets there in in amounts that even the state recognizes as dangerous.
Yep.
So that's the alarm that we have. It's not that
I
we're
understand.
saying that, you know, a tenth of a part per billion means that you have to go in and clean up that neighborhood right this moment. But certainly it is an indicator that the plume is spread much further north than the polluter is acknowledging. And so we should be planning ahead for the inevitability of those numbers increasing in those areas, because that's the direction the water's flowing. All right. Anything else on this matter from anybody here? Go ahead and move on, Dan.
I think I gave a update already on the NPDES permits, the both of them.
Yep.
The renewal, they're closer. They're saying, you know, soon for the renewal of the discharge permit for their current system. And they've just within the last month submitted the new request, NPDES permit request for discharge to First Sister Lake. I also then want to repeat myself again that is the first requirement that's in the response activity order. They are required to do that under that order. That is the first requirement to installation of that extraction well in that area. Basically, if they don't get the permit, then they will not install the extraction well, and they will not extract at the Park Lake area, area. But it was required in the response activity order as written.
Okay, do you have anything new under 4D?
Let me see here. Make sure I well location results. I told you, we are working. We again will, like I said, we met with Roger back in May. We will do quarterly meetings with some, kind of his technical review of data and information in our RockWorks model. We have moved, we are, like I said, have 2022 data we're getting ready to publish here from the RockWorks model. It's, the model is a static model, which means it takes the data and takes and presents where concentrations are related to that data. Then that RockWorks model is then used to update the interactive GIS web map that we have posted on our web page. So that web map is interactive. You can click on for example, a residential well, a monitoring well, and it gives you the history. It gives you information. Now, again, these are all within the last year and a half, 2 years. These are all new tools for us. So, as we've pointed out, as Roger has pointed out, we've had some glitches, as you do with technology. Sometimes, it's not, this well is not showing up. And as long as, if you do that and you point that out to me, I'll put it on our list and identify, get it worked on. So that interactive map is a place that anybody can go and get data and information about the Gelman plume.
Go ahead, Vince.
So Dan, I just want to get an educated guess from you. If EPA does take on this site, and like I said, EPA has said 0.35 is a concerning number to them for lifetime exposure. Environmental Working Group is 0.3 part per billion. What level would EPA shoot for on this cleanup? Would they use the Michigan standard, or would they have their own standard?
They will evaluate. Again, Superfund program is not my program, right. But as I understand it, in my knowledge of Superfund, they would evaluate the risk and the risk and come up with a risk number for the Gelman site. Now, realize that evaluation also includes what are the local criteria. What is the state's criteria for drinking water? So, it's not just an immediate automatic change. Okay, state's 7.2, we're going to go down to 3.5 or 0.35 because under, the state's law has a risk of 1 in 100,000. That's how they came up with the risk the 7.2 criteria.
And
now,
over a 32-year lifetime instead of a 7-year lifetime too.
Right.
Yeah,
So that, you know,
yeah.
so there's different assumptions.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
they
yeah.
will look at everything, but they have to include in that evaluation what the state criteria, they're called ARARs. And I don't know what the applicable criteria, you know, to what this, how did the state come up with their number? So I do want to make that clear that they could very well come down and say, yes, we will set a risk number lower than the 7.2, 1 in 100,000. But they have to go through a process to be able to do that evaluation and then defend that evaluation. Because again, a liable party may challenge that in court.
Do you know if Mansalona has a different
No,
treatment number than say
the same.
it's
Well,
7.2.
the criteria is Mansalona. I think they're using the 7.2 criteria up there.
Sure.
And
they're not cleaning it up. They're just giving people water.
Yeah, they're just keeping it below 7.2.
They're not cleaning up their dioxin.
Yeah, they're in fact, I think
They're just
out of their
extending
treatment
the water
system,
lines.
out of their water supply system.
Let's not get hung up on that.
Yeah,
I
think
have
they're
a lot of
at
stuff
4.
to cover. I'd like to get to my thing for
Yep,
once.
sorry, Roger. I'll shut up.
So
I'm going to start off.
Well,
Thanks,
before I turn
thanks,
it over,
Dan.
I turn it over to Roger, I want to circle back and
Well, I'm going to circle back too. Maybe
Yeah,
you
I
should
know.
listen to mine.
well,
They're on the screen.
I'm the chair. I'm just going to assert my authority here for just one moment. When we were talking about the intervener actions, I failed to mention the June 16th hearing, and that the trial court had denied the intervener's motion to order the polluter to pick up their pace. And that's kind of significant in that I believe both the Attorney General and the polluter believe that nothing can be brought before the the trial court while the appeal is pending. And that's what the interveners have appealed to the Court of Appeals. But I want to note that that motion was predicated in part on the fact that the polluter basically refuses to communicate their work progress to the interveners. And in making them respond to that motion in writing, they actually did give us a lot of information about the things that they are doing. The information I don't think that we had previously. So reading the polluter's response to that motion is very informative, and I suggest that you do. And it was refreshing to finally get some information about what they're doing. So go ahead, Roger, you can.
I'll try to get through my 20 minutes. So I'm going to start off with recapping some of the questions I had during Dan's presentation. And Dan, these are probably 1 word or 1 sentence answers. Why does the phytoremediation not cover all of Pond 2?
They did pre-design work, Roger, and sampled. So the coverage is related to that information they had, pre-design information.
Okay. How deep are those phytopipes?
As I understand it, they're in the range of 25 to 45 feet, or in that range.
So
we will have an as-built. We'll know exactly once everything's.
So the roots are going to be 25 feet below ground.
Potentially, yes.
Okay. Where's the data that said that they don't have to cover all of Pond 2 in their phytoremediation?
I don't have that.
We don't have that. Where are the prior sampling data that will show on all of the phytoremediation on the pond areas and in marshy areas? Where are all the prior sampling data that we know they did to show whether the phyto is working or not? We don't have that data either. Is that right?
That's part of that. That's part of the that is contested in the confidentiality agreement.
So how's that going to be handled in court? Is the phyto working? Well, Gelman says it's working. Well, where's the data? Well, we can't show you the data. That seems backwards. What happened to the burn pit wells that still show here on the Google Earth base layer which I pointed out more than a year ago. You got these 5 locations here that I actually went out and took pictures of in person. These were not there the prior year or two. So these looked like they were sample wells for the burn pit area. We've never had any data for these. And now it looks like they've torn up this area. Are these wells still there, or are they working around it? What do you know about these wells?
Well, there is some historic reports, hard copy reports that we have. And
no,
I would have to,
this is after the historic stuff. This is after 1988, 1998. This is sampling that's been done within the last 3 or 4 years.
Again, that's part of the data that and information, the pre-design stuff that was kind of they used, that is kind of covered under that confidentiality. That's the best I can give you right now.
You think there might be data here, but of course we can't get to it. Is that right?
Not right now.
Right. Why no pumping from TW25, which again is up here in the marshy area, just to the left of the marshy area? Why was there no pumping for May in the May data that I just downloaded from the EGLE site?
Because
that's 4,000 parts per billion.
Right.
That's
they had
high.
that
Why
was
were
a
they
new
not pumping in May?
That was a new well, and they have to treat all the contamination, treat that contamination that they added from 25 into their system. So they had to shut down the contaminated coming from TW25. So they did not have a violation of their NPDES permit, and then basically tweak their systems to be able to treat that high concentration, which was the highest. You know, that was 4,000 parts per billion, was a new high concentration that suddenly went into their system.
So it's July now. Do you think that's fixed now? They're going to be able to treat?
I believe yes, I believe in June they had. I'll check, but I believe in June they
we
had.
Don't have the June. We don't have the June results yet.
Oh, that's right. I get the June results in the second week in July, so I'll be up. I should be getting that next week.
What happens to the residue? Not just the water getting recycled and treated, but what happens to the rust residue and any of the other unknown compounds that are in during the pond cleaning? Does that get scraped down and sent to a landfill? Or
yes, I believe that's the treatment. That's what has been done in the past. It gets scraped down and barreled or containerized and properly disposed of, used, under the hazardous materials.
And EGLE has records of all that.
Right. We have records. I don't think I have this year's, but.
Has anybody done any sampling of other compounds that might be in the water, in the residue?
EGLE has, well, at least recently, EGLE has not, but they have to have certain compounds have to be sampled to get permission for proper disposal at a disposal facility.
But is that before they take the water out? Is there?
Has the water been sampled for other compounds?
No, I meant the residue itself.
Well, yeah, they dewater and then scrape and clean the residue up.
But does the company sample the water before it's emptied and say, look, we didn't find any residue, and then when the water is gone, the residue should have more some compounds could be concentrated in the residue. Have those concentrated residues been sampled for any other compounds?
Well, as they would be as required, if required, for proper disposal of the residue.
Thank you. And when will the Rockworks map be updated? You said they're working on it now.
Well, we're hoping to have it, up sometime here before the fiscal year ends. That's what my goal is. But we've had a couple of hiccups with what's going on. So.
Okay. I just posted these questions in the chat so everybody can save their chat to get to them. I'm going to go ahead with my updates once I find where my file is here. Back to the agenda. I'm going to start off with the SIO sampling data. And I'm gonna, this is a PDF of a Google Sheets that I will, that I've created from the Google Earth images. So here's the, oops, I can't zoom in like I can on Google Earth. This is the area that SIO has sampled. And page down, there's a close-up of it. Here's another shot of it without the map. The yellow bullseyes are where there have been hits, and the smaller white bullseyes are where there was non-detect. In other words, less than 0.12 parts per billion. This is an area that is very concerning. It looks like there is a straight northward movement in this area towards the river. And I will point out that that's where I was concerned about DuPont Circle, high concentration slipping under the monitoring wells there. So there's some potential, if we look at these 3-4 wells here that are kind of lined up, there's a potential pathway to the river here. And there's other pathways that can be analyzed that follow along this tributary here. It's possible that these are deep enough that it would follow along underneath the tributary. And then there's another one here. And by the way, this tributary is about the same volume of flow normally as the tributary that they're discharging into. But let's concentrate on this 4 wells close to the river. This hit here is about 1.25 miles from where the presumed edge of the plume was. A mile to 1.25 miles. It's about 2 3/4 miles from the Gelman site itself. That's a lot farther than we thought it was going to be. This is a surprise to me, and it should be to everybody. In Google Earth, we can take a pathway like this and do what's called show the profile, vertical profile. And when I've taken that image and I extended it down deep enough so that we can show how deep the wells are. So here's the first well of those 4. It's about this deep, goes down to about 700 feet. Next well, maybe 40 feet shallower, the next one 40 feet shallower, and then another one about 700 feet. Now those are, with all 4 of those are between 60 and 100 feet below the river surface. So even if it gets to the river, it probably won't vent straight to the river. It may meander along under the river for quite a ways. How far? Well, let's take a look at the tributaries that lead to the river. Here's the tributary that the city's concerned about, because this goes straight to the river. This is where some of that additional sampling is going to be done. This is the tributary that is closest to the river and empties in through the Brokaw property here that these 4 might be associated with. This next tributary is the run that runs behind Will Hansen, or in front of Will Hampson's house, and then along and joins up with Honey Creek proper here. The rest of Honey Creek proper goes all the way back to the discharge point and beyond. In fact, if we look at that, look at the elevations of these. This is like from 930 feet down to the almost 800 feet is where the Barton Pond surface level is. And similarly for this one, it goes from 893 down to the 796. This one's close to my house, but it's on the other side of the road. This one starts at 920 and goes down to 829, where it joins up with Honey Creek. And then this is the Honey Creek proper one. that goes all the way back. And I've noted the elevations at different points in the river: 796, below Barton Pond, 773, below Argo Dam, 762, and all the way to US 23 is 746. Now, what was the depth of those wells up here? Elevation, 700 feet. So where along the stretch from Barton Pond to US 23 might that water come up? This is something we have to start looking at in more detail. And I think I covered this with you, Dan, in a phone call earlier today. So I just wanted people to be aware of that. It's already affected people, homeowner wells in Scioto Township. Could it affect homeowner wells, these pockets of homeowner wells from Ann Arbor Township and beyond? How far beyond? Well, here's the Huron River watershed. So we're talking about this area here, going all the way down to here. We said at US 23 it was 700 feet. How much farther can it go? And we're talking about just one set of sampling we have so far from Scioto Township. Here are all the wells in Southeast Michigan from the latest map from EGLE site. Now you can see, fortunately, along Huron River, there aren't that many of them, but there are some. So these sites should not be discounted. You know, let's just let it go, because it's not going to affect Ann Arbor's water, maybe. Well, it may affect Ann Arbor's water. It's already affecting Scioto's water. It may affect other townships and other wells downstream. And of course, Lake Huron, Lake Erie's there too. So that's a concern. See if I covered anything else, missed anything else here. It's really important that we get good data, complete data, and get it in a timely manner. To do what I did with the SCIO data was not easy, because I was not given the street addresses. I was given a map. And trying to pick the addresses off a map, there were some of them I picked wrong. And I think EGLE got the street addresses, but CARD did not. So it took me longer to do what you've already seen in terms of my analysis and looking at the well depths for wells. It's better that we have accurate data sooner and well shared among all the stakeholders. Along those lines, I've added in all of the maps from EGLE and from Gelman through 2021 that I have, and all the data. So the Google Earth mashups have all that stuff now. And as of last week, so my Tableau public mashups are now up to date as well. So if I go to SRSW, and here's what I have about the SCIO sampling and the news report about it. And then here's the sets of data for all of the quote official data that EGLE has through 2021. And there are 6 maps here. So there's a plume map, and you can watch this over time by clicking here. You can see the size of the circle shows how big the concentration is of dioxane, and where every one of those is a data point. So all the data points that we have XYs for are being plotted. The color shows which aquifer Gelman thinks is part of, and the shape says what type of well it is. So we can see how it's spread laterally. And at any time, you can stop this and click on a point and get the data about that point. So this is the kind of interactive displays that we can use. Even lay people, even decision makers can use this. I would hope that EPA takes a look at this. I already have some people at ITRC looking at this as a way to visualize what's happening. And of course, here's what's happened over time. And this is a log scale. So you got 1 part per billion, 10 parts per billion, 100 parts per billion, all the way up to 280 parts per billion, I think was the highest, over time. And again, it's coded by the same things, the aquifer color, the type of well it is. And you can choose to say, well, let's just look at maybe extraction wells. How are extraction wells doing over time? Is it going to work? Here's E unit. I apologize, I'm having delays here. But anyway, you can go ahead and play with this. But what you see here is that there are some trend lines that are disturbing. If we look at the D2, the intermediate aquifer, for instance, it came down during the time that Paul was in charge, but when Danaher took over, it's not going down as fast. So you still have very high concentrations here. If you look at other elevations, you also have similar things that you can tell from this data. You know, still 2,000 parts per billion in the E unit. So here's another view of that same thing with the circles showing the bigger circles, so higher concentrations. It's just another view of it. You can also look at this from north to south, south to north. So here's this band here is about equivalent to the Gelman property, south to north. So a lot of the concentration is going north. This higher layer up here, the surface elevation, everything down here is the screened elevation. So dioxane filtered down through the different layers to get all the way down this far north or this far north. There's a west to east component as well. And again, this is the Gelman property. So this would be like Wagner Road here. And again, over time, you've seen these things spread west to east. These are the same data points you saw on the prior one, south to north. So some of the concentration is going mostly east, but some of it's going straight north. And then finally, here's just a simple map that doesn't have a lot of the colors and the shapes and things, just to kind of show you the. But most of these you can play over time. So we can pull this forward to 2000, pull it back. You can hit the play button and watch it spread. What this does not have yet are the SIO samples. And I'm hoping to add those before too long. So I'm going to stop there and check my yeah, that's pretty much it. Google Earth, homeowner sampling. We already covered this. We do need to start thinking about whether we're going to go a hybrid in-person meetings and Zoom meetings. But for the time being, I think it's better for everybody to do Zoom. It cuts down on travel time, and we can see images better. We can share images better this way with everybody rather than trying to squint and look at paper copies of maps in a meeting. So I'm just going to wrap it up there and go back to the agenda. Any questions?
I would like to say something about in-person meetings. I think that the current situation is a very contagious situation with Omicron, from what I've read for Washtenaw County and other places as well. So even though people aren't getting deathly ill from it in general, it's still an issue of whether you will get it and have long COVID or not, or what's the future, So until the rate goes down, I'm not sure, I would be interested in person, although it's hard not to be able to do things in person, no question. But I appreciate all the work you did, Roger, to get this up and going and Zoom working.
As far as COVID, I know somebody that died from long COVID. Yep. I talked to a nurse at Summer Festival who's had COVID twice, and she says a lot of the nurses have some kind of mental thing going on because of the times they've had COVID. Yeah. And we are not taking care of our caretakers as well as we should. Both my grandchildren got their first shots for the under 2s. Great. So we're trying to do our part there. Yeah. So I think we stay on Zoom for a while.
I agree. So moving to non-agenda items, I want to ask if anybody on the executive board wants to draft a letter to Ann Arbor City Council asking them to restore the wet basement testing program and perhaps modify it to improve it in the ways that Vince has identified in the past. Does anybody want to take a crack at that?
I'd be interested in working on that. I'll be kind of in and out of town later in the next 2 months, but I think we can probably put something together.
Just send it around to executive board members for comment and editing, and maybe even include me on that. I was a little alarmed to learn that they've just decided that they don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah, I'm surprised at that. The fact that SIO's done their sampling, I thought there would be more resistance from some people in SIO to have their well sampled, because they're going to say, well, okay, now it's hit. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know if that's a settlement that we have to worry about in the city. But if we don't have the data, we can't support those kind of remediation actions.
Indeed.
I think to some extent the homeowners were nervous about doing it maybe, or what if it is positive? And Patti would know more on this, but
property values.
What if it is positive and then I can't sell my house, or what's going to happen to the value of my house, because I don't want to live here anymore if it's in the basement. Or Patti, what do you think?
I will say at the listening sessions that we held, there was a lot of comments about that. There were a lot of people concerned about what was going to happen with data, what it meant for their property values. But then we did have many people who were like, yeah, I've had a wet basement and I would like to have it tested, but in the time frame that it was open, they didn't have any water in their basement. You know, I think we had like 3 or 4 people who participated and there was never a detection. The distribution is somewhat decent. We have, you know, 3 different roads, so not all piled together. And none of them were detect. So I think the city felt they have some data. They left it open for 2 years, and you know, there just wasn't a lot of participation, unfortunately. And I guess, you know, the first year we did have the drought, so that didn't help either.
COVID.
Well, you know, the city really needed to try and engage the CARD group, the Allen Street group, and others in making best guess. I don't think that happened for whatever reason. I would say, I'd be cynical and say the city was trying to dummy down this. I think the leadership in the city has not been supportive of Superfund, nor has U of M administration. So we're fighting, you know, some pretty serious battles here that, you know, we're trying to get over. And hopefully the next tests that are done will involve the CARD group, the watershed group, and any other groups that are interested. Because we do have people in this city that are very knowledgeable, have a lot of data, a lot of experience, who've been doing it for decades. That should not be ignored. Thanks.
Yep. So they've concluded that program. I think that we need to try to generate some interest on council to renew it, and that letter is the place that we should explain what we desire. You know,
and like everything else, at least until the EPA comes in, and then they'll probably do tons of more testing on. I mean, I'm hoping, but the numbers definitely, I mean, the plume is moving that way. So it seems, and the shallowness of it, and it just seems prudent to keep doing it, but.
It seems cruel to just let the townships hang out there. It just really is unfortunate that this is the kind of government we have. It's just, the townships are very, very, in a very precarious position.
Yep.
You know, and the city of Ann Arbor doesn't have huge amounts of water to lend to the townships. So something, you know, it really needs to be done, not just ignore it. So the EPA is going to be a while, unfortunately. It looks like.
Absolutely. So thank you to everybody. I thought this was a productive meeting, and we have run our two-hour course here. So to remind you, the next meeting is August. Yeah, August 2nd. And we'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.